For more on this whole story, let's bring Mark Mahaney, head of internet research at Evercore ISI. Today, Mark was named Uber as his top large cap long pick. And this is a day, of course, where Uber, as well as Lyft, fell on the back of this news. And Mark, what is the reality in terms of the impact on Uber and Lyft? Is it ultimately a good thing or a bad thing?
Melissa, I think the answer to the question comes down to whether you think one AV company is going to run the table on AV technology. I don't think one will. And so in that case, the ultimate demand aggregator is going to be Uber, and you'll find robotaxis on Uber's network. And so Uber, it's the contrarian point of view today, and it has been for the last couple of months, but that's okay. I think Uber is actually going to be a long-term positive derivative from this. I think the speeding up of autonomous vehicle technology and regulations, I think it's a great thing. I can look out my window here in San Francisco. There's autonomous vehicles right here. They're called Waymo. They do very well. It's wonderful to have them here now in LA too. But it took them 19 years to get here today. I know that Tesla is taking a different technology approach. I'm not sure which technology approach is going to win. But from Uber's perspective, and it is still my top pick, I'm not moving away from that, is it comes down to whether there are going to be multiple AV vendors. And my guess is that there will be.
Okay. So if we can sort of break down how to think about this. Tesla can make the vehicles that are AV, autonomous vehicles, but there has to be some sort of an aggregator, a platform by which the consumer interacts and calls those vehicles. You're thinking that Tesla's not going to enter that market and that Uber and Lyft will be left as those aggregator platforms?
No, I think Tesla wants to do that. I think they want to enter in the market.
To do that. Okay.
Yeah, the question is whether they still have to get the technology on the road. Look, I hope they do it. I think it's great for all of us. If they can do it with computer vision and make it like that's not Waymo's approach. It's not Cruise's approach. And Waymo's out there doing, tens of thousands of rides and doing it very effectively and dealing with what the government is sort of in place to try to figure out. How do you reduce deaths? I think it's been wonderful what Waymo has done. I mean, I think that some of these restrictions, it's taken them 19 years to get to this point, but part of that's technology, but part of that's been restrictions. And I think the idea of easing those restrictions is a great idea.
Hey, Mark, it's Tim. You've been doing this a long time, and you're out on the leading edge here, I think. So help us understand, though, the difference between the take rates in the current dynamic for Uber and what it would look under like with their AV services as the core backbone or platform for the system. I mean, could it even be a more profitable business for them relative to the business they have now? Help us understand at least how you think of old versus new Uber.
Yeah, so I think these are just really hard things to figure out, Tim. It'll depend. It'll keep coming back to, are we going to have multiple AV, autonomous vehicle or robotaxi vendors in the future? If it's just Tesla's world, that's a fundamental, real negative for an Uber. I assume that 5 to 10 years from now, maybe even longer than that, Tesla can have that kind of global fleet, or at least in the U.S. That would be a really negative scenario for Uber. But if there are multiple vendors that do a pretty good job, and Waymo with an alternative technology does a very good job in the markets that it's in, and then if you put in Zoox, and you get some of the Chinese vendors in this market too. And my guess is that that's what's going to happen. It's probably healthy for the marketplace to have multiple AV vendors. So if that happens, then that's fundamentally good for Uber, and the same economics that Uber's had in the past, they'll get in the future.
But to Tim's point, I mean, Uber would not be the owner of these cars. Otherwise, it changes its business model. I mean, right now it's asset light, right? It doesn't own any of the cars, so it doesn't have that sort of issue in terms of inventory and upkeep and maintenance and all that. So in that new world of Uber, are the drivers the owners of these cars? And how are you thinking about it? So maybe it's more profitable for the driver, the quote unquote driver, the owner of the AV.
Well, I think the AV companies, the question is, do they want to own and manage their fleets? And my guess is that what Waymo's doing now in Atlanta and in Austin is what other companies are probably going to want to do, which is they're going to want to take those awfully expensive cars to develop and build and distribute, get them out and let somebody else monetize it for them. And whoever can bring the most demand to those vehicles can monetize it a heck of a lot better. I don't know how much demand from scratch Waymo can generate from it in Atlanta. But from day one, Uber can pretty much maximize that capacity utilization. So I think that's what's going to happen. I hope I'm explaining this well. I think for at least several of these business models, they're going to take their fleets of cars, whoever the owners are, and turn them over to the rideshare networks and say, give me 80 cents of every dollar you generate. Give me 90 cents. They'll have the ability to do that. Uber is going to make money that way.